If you've got a Christmas party coming up but don't know what gift to bring, then consider taking Brexit the Colouring Book as a novelty surprise gift. And who knows, depending who you're partying with, they might even be in the book. Right now you can get 2 copies for a very discounted price if you click the link below. The offer and Christmas shipping end very soon. Last Christmas was a hard one. COVID was spreading fast, and new rules disallowing even the smallest social contact were introduced at the last minute in an effort to halt the virus's spread and protect our beloved NHS. This is exactly why the fact that there was a Christmas party at number 10 last year, while simultaneously many were unable to see their family on Christmas Day, has hit so hard for many of us. So let's take a look at what's happened in the Christmas party scandal, whether laws really were broken, and if Johnson might be forced to resign over the matter. Hold on a second though, because I said something potentially controversial a moment ago. This is exactly why the fact that there was a Christmas party at number 10 last year, I say this is a fact, but the government hasn't seen it this way. For a while, ministers seemed to be reading from the same hymn sheet. They were unaware that there'd been a party, but insisting that they'd been assured that if there were a party, it would have been done legally.
I've been assured that no rules were broken. I don't even know if an event took place, but if it did, that no rules were broken.
I'm not aware of the Christmas party. Whatever happened at number 10, we've got to remember that number
Maggie,
10 is
number
10 is I've been reassured that all guidance was carefully followed.
You're assuming there that there was a party, first of all, and
Yes or
you're
no?
basing that on one report in one paper.
Sure.
I think you'll know that there have been reports that have been misleading in newspapers in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's happening all over again.
Unsubstantiated claims being made, and impossible actually to answer the charge on that basis, other than to say we're clear that the rules were followed.
This is both metaphysically extravagant. After all, how can ministers be sure that a party didn't break the rules if it didn't happen? And it's also just deeply implausible. The Mirror's claimed that 2 parties took place, one on the 27th of November and the other on the 18th of December. We're going to focus on the latter in this video because it seems to be the more egregious breach. In this, it said that between 40 and 50 people, including Downing Street aides, had a Christmas quiz, did a Secret Santa, and drank wine, with the event going on into the small hours. Additionally, a source claimed that people were cheek to jowl, alluding to a lack of social distancing. During this time, London was under Tier 3 coronavirus restrictions. And under these restrictions, people weren't allowed to meet socially indoors at all, with the only exception being for work. However, simply being in your place of work definitely isn't an exemption in itself. In fact, a day earlier, the government's own Twitter account made this clear, saying that Christmas parties and lunches weren't acceptable. And no reasonable human being could make the argument that Secret Santa, a Christmas quiz, and wine was anything other than primarily a social activity. But, as we showed earlier, there have been a slew of ministers claiming that guidance was followed. Clearly, if the allegations are correct, then there's no way this can be true. This is something that Deputy Prime Minister Dominic Raab seemed to agree with on Sunday.
But look, of course, if there was a formal party held, of course, that's something that was clearly contrary to the guidance that you just cited.
So, by Raab's own admission, if there was a party, then the rules, and therefore the law, was broken. Nonetheless, Raab seems reluctant to accept there was a party, owing to the fact that the only evidence came from anonymous sources. Unfortunately for Raab, though, it seems like a smoking gun was found days later, with the Prime Minister's own spokesperson, Allegra Stratton.
I've just seen reports on Twitter that there was a Downing Street Christmas party on Friday night. Do you recognise those reports?
I went home. Hold on.
Would the Prime Minister condone having a Christmas party?
What's the answer?
I don't know. It wasn't a party, it was cheese and wine. Just be clear, it's not.
Is cheese and wine all right?
No.
It was a business meeting.
I'm joking.
This is recorded. This fictional party was a business meeting. And it was not socially distanced.
This footage is from just a few days after the party took place in 2020 and shows staffers planning how they'd explain a party if the news emerged. Quite clearly then, it shows that Stratton was aware of the party and can't even keep a straight face when calling it a business meeting. Perhaps in light of this, the Deputy Prime Minister will now accept that there's been a breach of the rules. Or maybe even the police will intervene. After all, these rules were not just guidance, they were the law, with the police shutting down many other events and issuing serious warnings. And here's what Rob had to say.
The police have been very clear. They'll look at any letter, but they don't normally look back and investigate things that have taken place a year ago. I don't think.
Well,
in the absence of some
let's
form
leave
of
retrospective to one side. That's
good.
a strange thing for the police to say, but let's leave that to one side.
The problem is that the police do often look back on crimes that happened many months ago, as most people would expect. In fact, the police are currently prosecuting an illegal gathering that took place in Ilford on the 18th of December 2020, the very same day that the Downing Street party took place. This isn't even the only one. There were 14 other prosecutions across London for alleged similar breaches of COVID rules last December. And if an individual is found guilty of COVID breaches, they can expect a £200 fine, increasing to £10,000 if the gathering includes more than 30 people, something the Downing Street party allegedly did. The larger issue for the government, though, will undoubtedly be the impact it has on their reputation and polling. Cancelling Christmas was bad enough last year, but the idea that the government were partying while some people weren't able to spend time with lonely, elderly relatives is deeply unpalatable. This was already borne out in polling by Savanta Comres yesterday, which showed that 61% of people think that the Prime Minister is wrong, and that it's impossible for the party to have taken place without breaking the rules. And even 47% of Conservative voters agree with this. 63% also say that the PM should apologise for Number 10 having a Christmas party, with 48% of Conservative voters also asking for him to do so. Even though the Prime Minister has now apologised, the point is that this could seriously damage the government and build into a larger criticism that the government simply doesn't play by the rules. What actually happens next depends on how much larger the story gets. Criminal procedures do look unlikely due to a lack of hard evidence, and the fact that the government might have a technical loophole via Section 73 of the Public Health Control of Disease Act of 1984. Which provides exemptions for government buildings, which might be a legal loophole for them, but maybe not a moral one. Things got even rockier for the government on Wednesday, though. After Downing Street outright denied allegations on Tuesday, they pulled all media on Wednesday, which means that no ministers or spokespeople did the morning media rounds. And the Attorney General was even spotted entering Downing Street on Wednesday morning, presumably to provide legal advice to Johnson before PMQs. At PMQs, Johnson claimed that he'd received strong assurances from his staff that there hadn't been a party, but admitted that the Cabinet Secretary would be launching an investigation into the matter. This is, well, somewhat implausible. First off, the alleged party happened in Johnson's house, involved Johnson's staff, and even his personal press secretary. And let's be honest, you know when 50 people are having a party in your house. Secondly, it's just not consistent with the ITV video we showed you earlier. Clearly there was a party, and everyone knows it. But even if Johnson genuinely didn't know about the party, and he believes his staff, then this isn't much of a defence either. It just alludes to the fact that his own staff lied to him, and it's hard to see how this is actually that much better. In fact, it can be argued that it demonstrates a clear lack of judgment and leadership, and is almost certainly something that the opposition will capitalise on, as Starmer started doing in PMQs yesterday.
I asked the Prime Minister, was there a Christmas party in Downing Street for dozens of people on December the 18th? The Prime Minister, the government, spent the week telling the British public there was no party. All guidance was followed completely. Millions of people now think the Prime Minister was taking them for fools, and that they were lied to. They're right, aren't they?
So what happens now? Well, the Cabinet Secretary is investigating the matter, but their report won't be out for a few weeks at least. In the nearer term, what happens to Johnson will probably depend on how Conservative backbenchers respond. The SNP's Ian Blackford called for the Prime Minister's resignation, which unsurprisingly wasn't forthcoming. But if this story hurts the Conservatives' poll ratings, or just generally upsets backbenchers, a leadership election is a real possibility. After all, just 15 Tory MPs, or 55 people, need to send in letters of no confidence to trigger a leadership election. And there are already rumours that letters have started flowing in. But what do you think? Should Johnson resign? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. As a final thing, feel free to buy our book, Brexit the Colouring Book. Regular viewers will have heard us promote it enough, so we won't waste any more time on it. Just order soon if you want it ahead of Christmas. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that is in the description.